We traveled to SuperSport to play SuperSport United. We played them on the outskirts of Pretoria. I'll never forget this. It was a late night, 8 o'clock game on a Friday evening. We get to the ground. The pitch is rock hard, rock hard. Okay, there's only one person wearing six studs in the on that pitch. In the change room, the talk was, make sure you stay away from this guy. He will hurt you.
Hello, welcome, good evening, good morning from wherever you are in the world, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. Apologies to those watching from my very messy background. I'm in the process of moving house, but
Again,
welcome again, as always. My constant moving. Welcome to the On the Whistle podcast. My name is Alasdair, Howorth, your host today, and joining me is a former PSL legend, a former, and let me tell you, talking about legends, this is a very important topic today. So it's good to get a former PSL legend, former CAF Champions League player, and current was it Essex over 45s maestro Courtney Freese,
unretired, still trying to get
still
into the
going.
national team player.
Hugo Bruce, he's ready. He's ready. Courtney, how are you doing, brother?
I'm well, Alistair. How are you this afternoon, my man? It's so lovely to see you again.
Courtney, I'm good. As I was saying, I'm in the process of moving house, so having a chance to ignore the boxes behind me and all the nonsense to just chat some football is what a welcome break it is for me, Courtney. And today we are taking a bit of a light topic. Last week, we talked about the Women's Olympics and some of the really kind of heavy issues around Nigerian Zambian football, and this week we wanted to take a slightly lighter look at things, and we wanted to look at your former stomping ground in the PSL, Courtney, and two of the players who kind of your vintage, of your era, who've been, let's just say, sparring a bit online, Linda Buthelezi and Jabu Pule, aka Jabu Mahlangu. You know, give us a bit of context as to who these two players are, what is the beef, and what is going on here.
Alistair, firstly, let's just say I've never, in my years of covering football, come across a conversation like this. Normally, ex-professionals are very respectful to each other, but this is not the case at the moment. Jabu Mahlangu, formerly Jabu Pule, who played for Kaizer Chiefs, I will say he's a Kaizer Chiefs legend. I will say that. An unbelievably talented, skillful, penetrative player. Fantastic on the ball. Absolute great engine. Came into the Chiefs team following from the lives of Thabo Moki, Dr. Kumalo, Shakes Kungwane, took on the mantle, was the threat for Kaizer Chiefs. Was just an unbelievable player in his day. Yes, his life outside of football curtailed his progress in football. But I think there's a lot of narratives that had to be learned, which I think current players in South Africa have learned from, and current clubs have learned from in order to support players better, not just pumping them with money and leaving them. A wonderful player, an absolute wonderful player. If he was born anywhere else in Europe, he would be your Phil Foden. He would be your Kevin De Bruyne, a very, very good player, undoubtedly. The flip side to that coin is Linda Buthelezi. Played for Jomo Cosmos, played for Mamelodi Sundowns, played for Orlando Pirates. I wouldn't put him in the class level of Jabu Pule. Linda Buthelezi, very robust player, famous for mounting cards, injuring people, explaining how he hurt someone and didn't mean to hurt him. That was his reputation.
It kind of sounds like a Lee Cattermole kind of hatchet man kind of.
No, no.
No.
Lee Cattermole was very good on the ball. Very, very good on the ball. Lee Cattermole could take the ball, distribute the ball, and move the ball very well. That's not Linda Buthelezi at all. But he had his attributes under Clemens Westerhoff, who was an outstanding coach who took people like JJ Okocha to the '94 World Cup in America. named Linda Buthelezi the Mercedes Benz. Now, I don't need to tell you about the vehicle, but to be named the Mercedes Benz when there's things like Fiats, Unos, Taz's out there, he was named the Mercedes Benz of South African football. These two players have a bit of an argument. Jabu Pule plays for the Kaizer Chiefs Legends over the weekend. Linda Buthelezi says he's not a legend. Jabu Pule comes back and says, okay, uh, I'm not calling myself a legend. Other people call me a legend, but you cannot say anything about me because you were not a good football player in your day. Now, you must remember, both these guys have played national team football. Linda Buthelezi played around the times of the great Shoes Mashe and the great Dr. Kumalo.
And he won that, and he was a part of the AFCON winning side in 1996. And, part of
Absolutely.
arguably the greatest
How
South
was he
African
part
team.
of it? I don't know, but he was there.
But he was there.
He was there. You know, someone will say to you, Alasdair, how did Courtney get a Premier League medal? He didn't even play. He was absolutely useless. Some of us are just falling into lucky places.
It's like McDonald Mariga, who's Kenya's only UEFA Champions League winner, who I think got 5 minutes off the bench in a group stage win for Inter Milan when they won the treble. But he's got the Champions League medal. That's all that matters.
You can't argue it. You can't argue
You can't argue it.
So these two players then go at it. But Jabu Pule comes back with a very energetic, honest assessment of Linda Buthelezi, which I think shocked a lot of people. What he said about Linda Buthelezi's career has created massive ripples through the South African football media because I think Jabu Pule was 100% accurate on his assessment. Yes, Linda Buthelezi was this player. He was more famous for he could hurt you rather than he could hurt you playing football. And that's what Jabu Pule highlighted. You were famous for all the wrong reasons.
And Courtney, I guess, we're having a bit of fun at talking about, because he also uses, and I want to get a bit more information on this as someone who's only an English speaker. But he calls him a cow. But I think you were saying that this is there's much more meaning to this word. But and I want you to tell us about that. But I also want you to tell us why has this been such a big thing in South Africa? Two former players, two players who are very decorated in their own right, obviously very different players, but having a go at each other. Why is that such a big deal? And why is it not just two former players having a bit of a disagreement and a bish bash online?
Well, firstly, Jabu Pule, he's not speaking in English. Let's just start there. But the language he's speaking in, which combines a bit of Zulu with a bit of Xhosa, a bit of Zulu, it's a mixture. African languages are highly descriptive, Alasdair. Highly descriptive. So the direct translation of some of the things he's saying is not actually what he's saying. Now, it has more punch to it. And if you understand the language, like I understand the language, but I'm not pure in the language, like a lot of my Zulu friends will say, the descriptiveness of it makes this conversation even worse than what it is. So if I, in English, translated that conversation to you, you'll say, oh, he's just saying he's a bad player. No, he's not. This is because it's more insulting than being factual with facts about Linda Buthelezi. After this, if I'm Linda Buthelezi, I'm going to Jabu Pule's house to find him after that conversation. It's as simple as that. Furniture has to be moved. You decide where the furniture is. I don't care. But I'm going to find him. You don't talk about me like that. I've played for Sundowns. I've played for Pirates. I've played for Cosmos. I've played for SuperSport. I've played in the national team alongside John Shoes Mashewu and Dr. Kumalo. Clive Barker thought I was the bee's knees. Clemens Vesselhoff thought I was a Mercedes Benz. How can you talk about me like that? And Jabu Pule has come out Anthony Joshua style. Left nothing on the table and just said, if you're going to talk about me, I'm going to tell the world, South Africa, the truth about you.
Yeah, I love it. And Courtney, as well as how I want to wonder how much does the fact that they're Chiefs and Pirates play into it in terms of that one is Chiefs and one is Pirates. You know, even like yesterday, I was playing football in six-a-side, and there's a South African guy, and he's from Durban, but he's a Pirates fan. And he's saying that even in his family, his brother's a Chiefs fan, and he's a Pirates fan, and they're always fighting. And it means so much to be a Chiefs or a Pirates fan. It means so much. These two huge institutions of African football. Like, how much does that play into why this has become such a kind of a big deal in South Africa?
Alasdair, that is the petrol on the fire, is the rivalry between these teams. Yes, these were good. Yes, the one was an exceptionally good player, and the one played at that level. I'm just going to be that because my opinion is echoed in my thoughts. Okay, but the rivalry makes this even more intense. The rivalry, the one was a highly polarizing player. The one was a highly effective, destroying player who could play. Absolutely. And then you add the rivalry of the clubs to it. Wow. Now you got an issue. Because Jabu, in his own right, Alasdair is a Kaizer Chiefs legend. Whether you like it or not, whether you don't like him, whether you can talk about the fact that he ruined his career towards it, you can talk about all those things. But the fact and honest is he could play, and when he used to play, he used to hurt teams. He didn't have what is needed, what clubs have today. The mental health side, the support, the guidance to support. He didn't have that. And he's not the only one that suffered from that. Let's also say that.
And I want to kind of focus in on that, because that's kind of in many ways ultimately what Linda Buthelezi was saying as well. As he was saying he's not a legend because he didn't fulfill his potential in many ways. He was saying that Bule was a phenomenally talented player, but he didn't fulfill that because of these kind of off the pitch issues and kind of his lifestyle choices beyond football, which held him back in many ways. And obviously it's harsh of Buthelezi to say these things, and it kind of doesn't take it out of the context.
Let me say this: you got to respect the other guy's opinion, Linda's opinion. Linda was, I from what I know, we tried to get him on our show to talk to us, but he refused. Linda made smart choices and had a different clientele growing up, that he made better choices in his career. And well done to him, man. There's so many bad stories of footballers not doing the right things, and it's worked out for him. Fantastic. Fantastic.
But the point I want to make is I think maybe Jabupule's example is almost a good case study of where South African football was at the time. There was money coming in, stars were starting to be made in the PSL. Only 5, 6, 7 years ago, South Africa had returned to the international stage. But the players didn't have the support, the education, the infrastructure around them to make better decisions. And we see that even today in the PSL with, I think of players like Gabadinho Mahlangu, who's also been at Pirates and was a phenomenal player from Malawi, scored that wonder goal at the 2021 AFCON, but the reason he was let go from Pirates was because of his, off the field antics and the nonsense he got. Do you think that players or, teams in the PSL have gotten better at being, professional at supporting their players? Because that's another issue is PSL players after their career finishes, they struggle. We had who's your man who the goalkeeper who now runs the golf tours and wineries that we interviewed.
Hans Vonk.
Yeah, Hans Vonk. He spoke a lot about that, about how there was no support or there was no kind of guidance in terms of, once my career finishes as this football player, as this kind of hero World Cup playing goalkeeper for a country, that I'm left with nothing. Do you think that clubs are any better at that in South Africa, or do you think they still have to kind of learn?
They are, in comparison to the time when I played, they are. And I played during the period of these two guys that we're talking about. And clubs have had to get better at it, because now the footballers are not just seen as individuals going out there and running themselves to death. They've seen as assets that can bring investments into the club. Okay. I know we're going to segue into our Stanley Matthews conversation that we're going to speak about, but there are clubs out there that are very good at looking after their players, like when we spoke to Stanley Matthews before, and he said there's a pathway for players after football to go into coaching, to go through the ranks, to become coaches at SuperSport. So clubs have really changed how they behave in terms of looking after players. And you got to commend the country for that. You've got to commend the league for that. You've got to commend what happens. You just hope that it happens in a bit more places so we don't have these ugly stories. Um, I don't think Linda Butelezi's comments about Jabu were there to hurt him. I don't think that. Because there's a lot of people that could have, even myself as well, I would say he should have done more than what he did. He was, Alasdair, he was that good. You must remember, Jabu also played in Europe with
He went to Sweden, right?
Ernest Maidendorp.
Hmm.
Ernest Maidendorp actually came back to South Africa to take him to Europe.
Wow.
You know, this guy, Alasdair, I'm telling you, Phil Foden. People are naming their children Phil Foden only because he's playing now. But Jabu was a fantastic footballer, and he would have fitted in so well at a club like Crystal Palace, who have an element of street footballness in them, because that's what he was, a street footballer.
And,
What a
and those are the footballers we love to watch, you know, as much as
Oh
we
no,
see
an
these.
entertainer,
Yeah.
an absolute entertainer, but not just an aimless entertainer. I will say that. But I'll say this. I'm going to finish off this conversation. We traveled to SuperSport to play SuperSport United. We played them on the outskirts of Pretoria. I'll never forget this. It was a late night, 8 o'clock game on a Friday evening. We get to the ground. The pitch is rock hard. Rock hard. Okay. There's only one person wearing 6 studs on that pitch. In the change room, the talk was, make sure you stay away from this guy. He will hurt you. That was the Linda Buthelezi conversation. That was it. Make sure you stay away from this guy. He will hurt you.
Wow. Courtney, wow, that's, and on a pitch like that as well, that's brutal.
Well, listen, why are you wearing 6 studs? If he's listening to this podcast, you wouldn't remember it. I'll even tell you the color of the kit that we were playing in that day. They were wearing a white kit, and he was, and I just thought to myself, why are you wearing 6 studs on a pitch like this? It does not cater. Listen, that's all I can say.
I remember once I played in a kind of charity match against the Naivasha maximum security football team. So there's like a bunch of prisoners in Naivasha in Kenya, and they put together a team, and I was part of a team playing against them, and we played in the prison. And yeah, the pitch it wasn't cement, but it might as well have been, and they didn't tell me, and so I had 6 studs on. And the amount of times I fell on my backside, slipping and sliding. So I imagine intentionally wearing kind of studs for a game like that. Yeah, you know he's out for some danger. You know, it's good that you alluded to. We wanted to chat a bit about the SuperSport United CEO Stan Matthews and what he said recently in a press conference in a mix zone. Obviously he's been on the podcast, and I'd encourage you to go back and not watch it because that one wasn't on YouTube, but listen to a great interview Courtney and Zane did with him, kind of getting into the behind the scenes of football business in the PSL. But the reason why he's kind of come under scrutiny is he's been accused, which I think is quite humorous. He's been accused of almost having a connection with Sundowns, and this is after Keegan Johannes signed for Mamelodi Sundowns from SuperSport United, and it's essentially because every single good SuperSport United player over the last 5 years has gone to Sundowns. I'm thinking, Teboho Mokoena, Sifo Mbule, Aubrey Modiba, Grant Kakana, and obviously the biggest one, Ronwin Williams. Yeah, of course, who was the captain of SuperSport. Who was on the podcast
show,
the summer he was moving,
and when missing when the transfer was going on.
Exactly. But he was asked about this and kind of essentially accused of having this special connection with Sundowns, and he put it to the to the people essentially interviewing him, saying, "Look, Sundowns are the ones with the money. They, I think the quote he said was, if we can pay the player X amount, they can play them 300x." But he made an interesting point in that conversation, and this is kind of what the main thing I want to pick up on just briefly is the quote he said. He said, "Sundowns have already taken 9 of my under 13s players to their academy." Imagine, we hear about all the transfer going on, players being poached at under 13s. This is the level in which Mamelodi Sundowns is already high, bringing in players. And I guess I want to, ask Courtney, because, again, I referenced this guy I was playing football with yesterday, where, we were chatting about Pirates and Sundowns and Chiefs, and he was saying, "Oh, Sundowns should be playing in the Premier League. They're that good." And I agree. And Sundowns is this professional machine. It's run so well compared to other South African clubs. And it's producing some amazing managers like Pizzo and Rulani as well. But I guess my question is it a good thing that they're even going so deep as poaching these under 13s players, being professional enough to bring in this academy that we've already seen the benefits it's had to the national team of having a strong Sundowns at the AFCON. We saw how good that team was because the core of it, I think, on average 8 or 9 of the starters played for Sundown. But does it also really hurt the PSL? Because at the same time, we saw them almost go undefeated last season up until the last game of the season. They romped to the league. Is it like 7 titles in a row now or something like that? It's become a bit of a joke. And so I guess I just want to get your reaction to what that means in terms of they're not just coming for the expensive players. They're not just coming for your Teboho Mokoenas, your Ron. They're coming for your under 13s now. Courtney, when is it going to stop? They're going to be coming for the under 5s league soon. Sundowns are going to be paying them 50 grand to come play for them. What does this mean for South African football when some of these other teams like SuperSport just can't do anything? Because SuperSport are a very well run club in terms of the finances. It's a tightly run ship. They've done really well. They massively overperformed when they won the league back to back with Gavin Hunt, and they've managed to stay competitive, but they can't compete. How do we address this?
So, firstly, Ali, let's start with the accusation. The accusation's stupid. So let's just start there. The accusation that's been thrown at him is a ridiculous accusation. I think it's lazy journalism, and I hope the journalist is listening to this. It's lazy journalism. He's got nothing to do. He's sitting at home on his ugly couch, and he thinks that's a good question. It's a poor question. You got to look at where SuperSport and Sundowns are situated geographically. They are in Pretoria. They're close to each other. Number one. So they are fishing in the same pool for talent. The other thing about is competing. SuperSport compete with Sundowns when they play. If they have their teams out, SuperSport are able to really compete. Over time, they can't because Sundowns have a greater machine than SuperSport. I think that the CEO put it elegantly on how they are being robbed of talent. And let's use that word, robbed of talent, by this juggernaut of a machine, which is Sundowns. Now, Sundowns are not silly because they got highly intelligent people in place, and it's always good to work around smart people. We are not just going to take the top away from you. We're going to take your legs away from you as well. And this is how they make the rest of the league bend towards them. They drain the talent into their system. They have the finances to manage this and have so many people on their books, which minimizes the talent in the other clubs. Now, the one thing that they can't do is take someone like Kevin Hunt away. So forget everything else you got, right? You got the Pep Guardiolas and the Man Cities and the oil money that you've been blessed with, but you don't have the Jurgen Klopp. You don't have the Gavin Hunt. Gavin Hunt is a fantastic manager. Gavin Hunt has the capacity to put a team together to compete with Sundowns. Will Sundowns overall always win? Sundowns not will always, they have to win, Ali. They have to win because they have so much of everything. They have to win. How are they going to win minus Rulani now is a big question mark because You've taken out an imperative cog out of that team. He's left a very stable unit of highly intelligent members there to continue the good work of Sundowns. But he was not just a flag bearing member himself. He also had a personality to drive that team forward. How does that team perform now? There's your question. That instability creates positivity for teams like SuperSport. Okay, you've taken 9 of our under 13s. Where have you heard of that happening? My goodness. All right. But putting a team out, preparing a team, getting them ready to go at again in Africa, getting them to go in the Premier League. SuperSport, I think, have a fantastic opportunity this season again.
And I think that's a good point. This is probably the best season anyone's going to have.
Yeah,
to get at Sundowns, because they just keep pulling further and further ahead. And I think particularly Pirates as well. I think they have a really good chance of challenging. You saw them in the Nedbank Cup final, that they can beat SuperSport on their day. I think Jose Rivero has done a really good job in terms of building that team. They have some really exciting players, like Mofo Keng, Patrick Maswanganyi. I think Chiefs. I don't see them challenging. I think there's too much of a mess. But they brought in a fantastic coach in Nazruddin Nabi. Obviously won back-to-back doubles with Yanga, got them to the semi-final of the Confederation Cup.
You got to look at the most important cog in the football team. Yes, the club owner owns the club, but you have taken the heartbeat of the football team that will decide how the team conducts itself, plays defensively and attackingly, and in possession of the ball. That's the manager. And Chiefs have gone out and got a massive manager. What I will say is Sundowns don't have a massive manager. That is the adamantium, let's use that word, that the other teams now have.
Yeah, Courtney, you're making me excited for this upcoming PSL season. Hopefully, Sundowns, even if they do win it, it'll be close, and it won't just be a walkover like it's been the last couple of years. And we've also added in some obvious Pirates and Chiefs drama, as there always is and there always will be between those two clubs. So thanks so much, Courtney Freese. Always love chatting to you, and I can't wait to be speaking to you later this season when we actually have the PSL going.
Alasdair, I'm excited. I'm tipping SuperSport to win the PSL.
You heard it here first, folks. That is a bold claim from Courtney Freese. But SuperSport under Gavin Hunt are going to do it again, according to Mr. Courtney Freese. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I'll leave you on that note, because that is some note to leave you on. Good night.